Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Straight Up with MS and all its crazy little circles here on MS&Me Radio, brought to you by the MS Global Support Network. And I'm your host, Patty Long, and you can find me at MS in It for Life, and I spell that MSENIT, the number 4, LIFE, and I'm on Twitter. Well, I try to be on Twitter. I haven't really been on Twitter much lately, and that's because of, what I was telling y'all about last week, which I'll finish that story this week, because it was too big a story to go into the little bitty space, especially for me. The way I circle and get off track and go out of order and all this good stuff. So anyways, we have this double carport and a foot of snow in South Carolina where snow doesn't happen. And it was the most craziest thing ever. So the carport collapsed when I got into my car and started it so I could charge my phone. We didn't have any power and my phone was at 1% battery. Yeah, I wanted to charge my phone. And I guess that's being kind of an idiot, but, that's in retrospect, y'all. Hindsight is always 20/20, and sometimes when you tell somebody what happened, they're like, oh my goodness, you shouldn't have done that, because that's the vibration, those vibrations is what caused the collapse. And, kind of like an avalanche or something. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was an idiot, y'all. But I didn't know I was being an idiot. Does that count? It doesn't really count in my book. But, there's a difference in being ignorant because you just plain don't know and have never learned. And it's not that you've not tried to learn or any of that kind of stuff like we deal with when we're dealing with so many ignorant people that live around us that should know better. But it's the kind where nobody ever told you or taught you and you've got no experience. And so therefore you don't know. And so it was more of that sort of a ignorant kind of situation. Is it the same word? I don't know. I'm all mixed up. And, this is the problem. I get all mixed up. So after the collapse and after the sexy fireman carried me into the house, yeah, I got to say that. I really don't remember what he looked like, y'all. But firemen, when I think of firemen, I always think of this, well-built, sexy guy. And I know he was much taller than I am. Which, shoot, everybody's much taller than I am. But, and I know when we got out, he told me what a great job I did, because I had to crawl. And I had to crawl in the snow. Now, I had on my wet gear. I can't remember what they call it. Oh, goodness. But it was I bought them for my trip to Scotland and England because, well, it's supposed to rain all the time up there, but it didn't. And I actually got the pants in England and, actually in Sheffield, England, to be more specific, at their version of Walmart. And their sizes go by age up to a certain point, and then I don't know what happens after that. But I was the size of a 12-year-old. Yay! So I got them really cheap. And then I had a raincoat that I bought here, which I should have bought there, but I didn't know that because my raincoat here was like, I don't know how many times more, because, you go from 15 pounds to $100, basically. So, well, I didn't pay quite that much, but basically. So, anyways, you live and learn about everything, and this was definitely a learning experience for me. You don't make noise in a foot of snow. Not in South Carolina. So, because your carport might fall. But anyways, I don't know if that's what caused it or not, but just saying. And the next day, I went to the hospital. Now, I very quickly told you at the end last week that I came home from the hospital and I'm okay. But my experience at the hospital is what I want to talk to you about today, because this was disastrous. And it put so much stress on me, just the way that I get treated around here at hospitals. And this is totally ridiculous. So I get to the ER, and by that point, I had lost my legs completely. Which, when I start having these things happen, they happen quickly, and they escalate quickly. And they always involve certain areas of me, and then sometimes they involve other areas as well. But it's this day, my right arm, my left arm was only half gone, and my legs were gone. I had my core. I could not think. I was so confused and mixed up and all of this. And I was in pain. My head felt like it was exploding and imploding at the same time. The area where I have the black hole in my head from having had that tumor removed, so now I don't have a growing problem, but I have the leftovers, is what I call it, and it's a black hole. Now, there's a little air bubble in my black hole. I don't know why I didn't have enough spinal fluid to fill my black hole, but there's a little air bubble in it, and that's been giving me problems since day one. Well, I shouldn't say day one, but since I got home from the hospital after having the surgery day one, because then I didn't have the medications that they give you at the hospital. So yeah, that has been a problem. I can, it's like being a bobblehead, because you have this feeling of something moving inside your head, and there actually is something moving inside of my head, and it's always in the same place. And I tend to wear a headband all the time because that kind of helps to keep it from feeling quite so badly that way. But it can, even with the headband, but it usually, the headband helps me to avoid that bobbleheadedness. But this headache that was back was worse than any that I'd ever had before. And of course, I was so mixed up and confused. But not only that, but I was so agitated over nothing. My mood was a mess. And I guess I panicked in a way because I didn't know what to do. So finally, I talked with Kevin. And I mentioned him last week, but I didn't have my phone or anything in front of me. And I want to give a big thank you again to Kevin A. at big_N_VA. He called me, took time out of his busy day, called me and talked me into going to the ER and get checked, because he could even tell I was off just by speaking to me over the phone. And so I get to the hospital and I have to wait a long time. Now, I'm not put in chairs because my legs are gone. And I told the guy that brought me in, the paramedic, I told him, I said, my legs are gone. My legs are gone. I can't, I'll end up in the floor. And that's kind of how I talk, although it's hard to imitate, but that's kind of how I talk with having MS issues and too much stress of one type or another. And having a carport fall on you and the shock of all of that, and I totally believe I was in shock that day, that causes MS to go freaking nuts. But I had also been throwing up and feeling nauseated. And I also had this really high-pitched ringing in my ears. And I have tinnitus. Did I say it right this time? Yay me! But I have that. And, you know, many of us do. But mine is a low pitch, because I remember very distinctly when it first started, I could never hear my youngest boy, and he has a deep voice. So it was a much lower tone. So this was a different tone. And of course, when the carport fell, everything didn't go out, it went in. So it imploded. My windows, all the glass was inside the car, not outside the car. It was inside the car. But when I finally saw a doc in the ER, they wouldn't hear what I was saying. They couldn't get past my stuttering and listen. They couldn't believe me, and I had all my stuff with me. I have an emergency bag always packed. It's got my last 3 MRIs in it. Or maybe my first or second MRI and then the last 2, something like that. But I've got 3 CDs in my bag. I even got them out to hand them to them so they'd have something to compare to, because I've had a CAT scan before with my surgery. But no, they didn't want them. They didn't want to compare anything. So I just laid back there by myself, because I went by ambulance and there's a foot of snow still on the ground, although some of the roads had been cleared or just driven on enough that it had mostly melted. And then when the ER doc comes in there, by the time he's there, my son Joey is there. And he was sitting with me, and he said the doctor said they wanted to keep me overnight for observation, that they didn't see any brain bleeds in my CAT scan. And they wanted to keep me overnight for observation and test me for a stroke. And I said, but I'm not having a stroke, except for it came out more like, but I'm not have stroke. And they just could not get past my MS symptoms. My son said, stay. So I stayed. And he thought it best that I stay for observation, regardless of what else they wanted to do. So I go up to the room. Now, I've been there all day. I went in the morning, and it was 8 p.m. when I finally got put in a room, and I had not had a bite to eat, and I had not had a single thing to drink, and I had been there the entire day. Now, I get it, I was nauseated, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't eat anything, especially when you're a little bitty like I am. I do everything I can to hang on to my weight. And, I can be fully dressed, shoes, which I wear boots. Now, they're lightweight boots, but they're boots, and they help with my ankles and knowing what's going on with my ankles and whether they're twisting. So, I wear these boots. I've got on all my clothes, and in the wintertime, even a jacket, and possibly stuff in my hands and in my pockets. And the most I ever weigh is 106 pounds. I'm 5 feet tall, so I can handle that, but I don't need to lose weight. So I get to the room, and I tell them, do y'all have anything at all to eat? Well, it's way past dinner time, and I'm like, but I am hungry. I have not been here all day long, and I haven't had a single thing to drink. Can you give me a Coke or something sweet, to drink, because I have not had a single thing. I wanted the fizz, the bubbles always, I don't know, they help somehow, usually with crackers though. But they made me wait and wait and wait and wait. And then this little nurse comes in there, and she wants to go through my bag of stuff, and she starts just throwing things out, and I'm like, I don't think so. I said, if you want to know what's in my bag, I'll be glad to show you, because I understand security. But bring it to me. Now, I was hurting, and so I probably was hateful in the way I said it, but geez, do you go through other people's bags just because you're in the same room with them? I doubt it. And I had it packed a certain way, and I'm very particular about how my stuff is arranged, because if it gets out of whack, I can't find it. So, I went through it. I made her bring me everything. And then I kept it with me on the bed. And I just thought that was the rudest thing ever. Oh, and before that happened, they were going to help me walk, because my left leg had already started coming back. A hospital isn't a great place to be, but it was so quiet in comparison to my house and all of that, the difference there, I think, helped a lot, and being in the quiet helped. But my leg had come back on the left, but not on the right. And so again, this is why they're saying stroke, 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 because now it's just everything on the right. And my stutter, which wasn't as bad, but it was still there. And the little girl, the same one that went through my stuff, she's going to help me to walk. And she grabs up under my arm, digging her fingers up into my armpit, and pulling my shoulder up. And I started screaming at her then. And I did, because she was going to make me fall. Don't make me fall. I'm not going to let you make me fall. So I started screaming. She wasn't my nurse much longer. That second thing, and she was out of there. And I had the nurse who was the manager. I still didn't get my medications, and they didn't come till about 3 a.m. And then they finally allowed me to take my Tecfidera and my magnesium and something that I take, the combo drug I take to go to bed at night so I can sleep without getting hurt in my sleep. And then the next morning they took me down for heart tests and an MRI of my brain only, no orbits. Of course, no orbits. I refused the contrast because they couldn't tell me what kind of contrast they use. So, and it makes a difference, guys. So, anyways, they did that, and they did the heart test, and they took me back to my room. I still had not seen a doctor. Still. I missed breakfast. Yay. So, then, I don't know, it must have been around lunchtime or so. They tell me they're going to take me for an MRI of my spine, and I asked them why. Why? And, I was there for a concussion. Everything else is just MS acting like MS. I said, and look, I can use my right leg now. It still feels funny, but I can use my right leg. Matter of fact, my left leg felt funny too, and so did my arms. And my right arm wasn't solidly back, but it was doing a lot better. I said, this is not an MS attack. She walks out. She says, so you're refusing the test? And I said, yeah, it's not necessary. And she said, okay. And she walks out. And she comes back in maybe 10 minutes later and says, well, you can go home. You can go home now. So I called my son to come and get me while they got the discharge papers together to send me home. Lovely, isn't it, the way you get treated in this town? So the paperwork is all saying negative for a stroke. I knew it wasn't a stroke. I knew I wasn't having a stroke. Who has a stroke with a high blood pressure of 145/90, which it was high like that because I was in pain and I was stressed. I was confused. I was in pain, y'all, so my blood pressure was higher. And, it's just absurdities. Now that ring in my ear is still there, and it's been made worse. Because when I was going in for the MRI, the girls, first off, didn't finish getting all the stickers from the heart monitors off. The stickers they stick on you with the little metal things? They didn't even get all those off before they stuck me in. I guess I got lucky, huh? So there was that. And there was something else that happened too that was really bad, and now it's just poof and it's gone. But to be treated this way, I was not there because I was having a stroke. A stroke should never have been suspected. A, my blood pressure wasn't high enough. B, I've already told them I have MS and that this is what happens. MS is MS is MS. And when you're stressed out, when you have a physical thing happen to you, an emotional thing happen to you, just too much going on at once, or you're just worried to darn death about something or everything all the time, then your symptoms, your issues, as I like to call them, because issues can be solved. But these things happen. They all come out to play. They're like these little boogeymen of MS, and they're running around like crazy going and pinching this spot and that spot to make it light up and activate. Well, maybe it doesn't light up, but in my mind it's like this little explosion goes off in there. And I have a very cartoony background, so I see this little MS boogeyman going and popping up here and there and there and there and there and there and there and running all around in my brain and in my spine and making all these funky things happen. And let's not forget my eyes and your brainstem, which, your brainstem doesn't even show up really in an MRI of your brain. Did you know that? you can see the very tip top of it, but that's it. You have to get one of your neck to be able to see that spot. So I probably am due for more MRIs, but after the way I had been treated, I certainly wasn't going to do it there. I hadn't even seen a doctor. So, that's wrong, y'all. Don't allow yourself to be treated wrongly. So since then, it's been talking to the billing department because they billed it for a stroke and my insurance didn't see it as necessary. So they didn't pay. And secondly, I called their complaint department to let them know what was happening in their own hospital. And we'll see what comes from that. And then I've been fighting with insurance companies. So I haven't been on Twitter much. And I can't see for very long the screen. And I was told by another nurse, my health insurance company nurse, that a concussion can cause issues, as far as seeing things that are like watching a screen that is bright or anything, reading, can all make a headache like that worse because I'm still having issues with the headache and the vision. And it is what it is, and it'll be over when it's over. And I hope y'all have had a great New Year's. I really do. Mine's starting off with this weird mess, but I'm doing okay. I apologize for having gone missing from Twitter. I hope nobody out there is worried. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, have a great week. Smile big. Smile often. Laugh a lot. And most importantly, love yourself. Even your messed up parts. Thanks, guys. Bye.